Hey Husker Nation, I'm Jessica Cootie and excited to introduce you to another new addition to the Husker football staff, coaching the defensive edges, Roy Manning. Welcome. How's the last week or so been for you?
It's been a whirlwind, hit the ground running, jumped right in and start coaching and integrating myself, so it's been good.
We were chatting. I didn't realize you weren't familiar with Coach Orich until you went to San Diego State. So when he gives you the call, hey, you want to come to Nebraska, what was that conversation like?
Yeah, it was exciting. Obviously, we had a really good year there at our last place, and that presents some opportunities, and Coach Rob had an opportunity and, just kind of went with it, and so I was really excited when he called me. Just have really grown to really appreciate being around such a great football mind in person. So,
what is it about Coach Orich that you guys really hit it off and click so well?
I just think how he sees football. I think his ability to communicate and just connect with people just on a real level, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's not what you know, but how you're able to get that information to people and get them to execute. And he's obviously the best there is at doing that.
You played at Michigan, coached at Oklahoma the last couple of years when Nebraska matched up, but have never been to Nebraska, to the stadium. What is your perspective of Nebraska football?
Yeah, I was really excited, obviously, being a Big Ten guy and having heard so many great stories about the game day atmosphere here. Obviously, if you know anything about football, you know what Nebraska football is and always has been. Just such a great legacy and history of tradition and winning. Sellouts for, 50, 60 years straight. So, it's just an awesome opportunity.
So what has it been like? You get here, it's a unique opportunity that you can already get on the field with these guys. How has that gone?
It's been great. I can say one thing, Big Ten football is alive and well. It is definitely a different brand of ball than, some of the other leagues out there. It is physical, every single play, smash mouth, in your face football. And that's what football is. And so it's kind of exciting to be around that again and just to see the willingness of these guys to go out there and practice hard.
We talked to Coach Orich about, obviously a tremendous turnaround at San Diego State last year. From your perspective, what is it about his defense that allows for teams to play really good defense really quickly?
Yeah, I think that it's a clear message of what are we going to do? What's our job? Who fits where? You know what I mean? There's no guesswork. There's no throwing things against the wall. It's very clear about alignment, assignment, technique. Like I said, him being a great communicator. And I think he prioritizes, first and foremost, stopping the run. And I think anytime you have a defense that hangs its hat on stopping the run, you're going to have a great chance to be a pretty good defense.
Hearing from a number of people that he's so good at identifying his players and what they're good at and putting them in the best position, as opposed to, hey, this is our defense and this is how we're going to run it. How important is that? How unique is that from your perspective to have a defensive coordinator that's able to tailor things to what he has and the skill set that he has to work with?
Yeah, I think that's critical. I've always said in coaching, we all have our ideas, we all have our systems and schemes, but, the other piece of that is we're not out there. We're not doing it. And so we have to be adaptable and mold that a little bit to our personnel. And I think Rob has done just over the course of his career as good of a job as anybody of getting the most out of the personnel. And nothing will change. I think we'll have success doing that here as well.
You've coached a number of positions in the defense. What is it about the edges that you like working with those guys?
I love the front. I appreciate my time in the back end, but I always joke and say you never have a good day when you're a DB coach, you know what I mean? So it's been really good just to really get my feet in where I'm most comfortable, in the front, right there in the trenches, setting edges, impacting the quarterback in the pass game. Having played on the line and off the ball a little bit myself, I just feel like I'm at home in the front, and so it's been really good.
So when you're instilling, the kind of traits of guys to get after the quarterback, what are some of the key things, the characteristics that are non-negotiables for you in that room?
Yeah, I think relentless effort and motor. You can have any skill set, you can have any measurables, but if you don't have a relentless motor and a relentless mindset, to just move and kill anything in front of you, you're going to struggle in the front because it is a man's game up front in the trenches. That's O-line, D-line. And so I think that that's first and foremost, that effort and that willingness to go attack and get after it. And I think just, really appreciating the opportunities that you have and taking advantage of that and understanding that, there's a lot of talented guys out there. It's the mindset that really separates you.
Coach George talked about, he wants to be a defense that you don't beat yourselves, right? That you don't make those kinds of mistakes that allow for teams to take advantage of that. What goes into implementing that? I'm sure it's not something that you just snap your fingers in fall camp and that's something that a defense can do. So, this time and on leading up to next fall, how important is kind of implementing that and how do you go about it?
Yeah, I think that's the most important thing is, again, we don't play, the players do. And so there has to be clarity in what they're doing. There has to be clarity in why they're doing it and how and all of those different things. And that's what the off season is for. I told the guys today, that's why we practice. Don't get discouraged making mistakes. That's why we practice, is to get that clear communication and clarity on, what is my job within the system, within the scheme of this defense. And again, I think, showing those guys pictures, walking through, obviously, meeting time, all those things are tools just so that they feel good and that they're clear on what their job is. And if you have job clarity, again, you have a great job or a great opportunity to do a good job on defense. So many times bad defenses arise from those things. It's not necessarily the offense, it's us failing to execute or failing to do our job. And so we have to be clear on that.
Okay, so in terms of recruiting, you're an excellent recruiter, but when you are looking for guys to add to your room, whether it's the portal or even from the high school level, what are some of those traits? I know you talked about the relentless effort, but what are you looking for when you're looking to bring guys in and recruit them here to this program?
Yeah, you want guys that can move the needle, right? So you want guys that enhance the room or enhance the team in some way. Obviously, we want length in our room. We want big, long guys because, again, that's who we play against. The largest human beings on the field are trying to block us every play. And so, yeah, to have length, to have some mass, you know what I mean? That's important up front. Obviously, there's a reason the NFL drafts the guys that they do because, doing your job is obviously a lot easier if you have the length and the measurables to match that. But, again, you still want a guy that has the mindset to go along with that. We can teach them the skills, the drills, the fundamentals, but they got to have the willingness to be coached and be coached hard. You know what I mean? That's part of the deal. And so they have to have that kind of growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. Obviously, you want them to have pass rush value. The run is part of the game, and we have to be firm and be able to stop the run. But on those passing downs, we need guys that can go get the quarterback. And so I think anytime they can flash on tape and win in different ways, not just I'm unblocked, but now I have to attack a guy and I have to transition and get to the quarterback. And, affecting the quarterback isn't always sacks. It's pressure. It's getting in their face. It's being able to get a hand up and push the pocket and crush the pocket. All those things, I think, are critical to put in your toolbox to be a great defensive end.
I've interviewed you a few times. I don't think you ever talked about defensive backs the way you talk about those guys up front.
Yeah.
You're pretty passionate about those guys.
I am. I think that, we grow and learn as coaches, and we all have those things that light our fire, a little bit. And definitely that defensive end and in that front, my fire's lit, man. I really enjoy working with those guys.
Some might not be familiar with this, but you actually faced Coach Rule as a competitor, had some battles when he was at Baylor, you were at Oklahoma. What was your perspective of Coach Rule teams that you played against and why they were such a challenge to go up against?
Yeah, the first thing that sticks out is just toughness, just hard-nosed, hard-edge guys. I just remember some of those guys like Petrie and some of those big ends. And, they had a tough outfit. They were going to run the ball. You know what I mean? They're going to do a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, they're going to try to run the ball down your throat, offensively and defensively. They were going to be sound. I remember them being just great tackling teams and just playing with an edge. And, he did a phenomenal job, obviously, just turning that Baylor program around that fast. And, we came out on top and, but much respect. And, we had to play them twice that year. Came back and played them in the championship game, and it was just as hard of a game. And so always have had a lot of respect for Coach Rule and his teams that he's coached over the years.
A lot of the things that you're talking about matches kind of what he wants in his teams too. So you got to appreciate and like the fact that your head coach is kind of has the same thought process as you and Coach Orich.
No doubt. That's always exciting. Defensive football, so much of our success, comes from clock management on the offense and, extending plays and just being able to control the line of scrimmage up front. And it really marries well, I think, with our style of defense and who we want to be. The Orich Rule deal, I can already see. I think it's going to be the type of fit that both sides are going to really benefit from.
I told you, Coach Orich is unlike any defensive coordinator I think I've ever talked to. He's got a personality, right? But players relate to that.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think connectivity and being a great communicator. Again, I think that there are so many great football coaches, right, in the country. But it's really getting the most out of the players and motivating and inspiring the players. It's not just knowing so much because, again, we don't play on game days. And I think Rob does as good of a job as anybody that I've ever been around with being a great communicator and being relatable, where kids want to go out there and play hard and kids aren't afraid to make mistakes, you know what I mean? But kids also know what they're doing.
You excited to be back in the Big Ten?
I am. I am. I'm a true Midwest guy at heart, born and raised in the Midwest, and so this is where my roots are. Spent a lot of time, obviously, on the West Coast and other places, but I like a little brisk air, a little brisk wind hitting you as you open your door in the mornings. That's who I am at my core, and so excited to be around these guys.
And then just in terms of, obviously, you believe in Coach Orich, and you've been here, a week now and got a little bit of a sense. How excited are you about just the potential of what you guys can do with some of the players that are already here and what is here at Nebraska and what you can instill in this defense moving forward? How excited are you for that?
Yeah, it's been refreshing. It's been exciting. If you go back and watch, the games from last year, we were right there in every game. And so it's getting over that hump, which is sometimes that hump's bigger, but we're right there. And so, yeah, it's exciting to come in and kind of take that, that, I won't say pressure, but that opportunity to say, hey, let's get this thing over the edge. I think, you look at the bodies around here, you look at how hard we practice, it's just one more notch there and we can get this thing, where I think everybody envisions it. And so I'm excited to be a part of that. And I want that pressure to, go out there and perform and execute, and get it done the way I think Coach Rule envisions and everybody here does and get Nebraska football right where it needs to be and where it's always been.
Great stuff. Again, welcome to Lincoln.
Thank you so much, Jessica.